Now, while a major focus of Biden administration foreign policy has obviously been the war between Israel and Hamas, there's another front that is getting a lot less attention. It has the potential to make this a much more dangerous conflict. Over the past several weeks, there have been nearly 70 attacks by Iranian proxies on American forces stationed in Iraq and Syria. And yet, the White House has been, surprise, surprise, somewhat at a loss as to how to respond. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute, Michael Doran. Michael, thanks so much for coming on the U.S. Report again, and explain to us just where these attacks are coming from, who the Iranian proxies are, and how they are being exploited by Iran.
Well, great to be here. Thank you. It's wonderful to be back. Those proxies that are attacking the United States are not actually proxies. They are puppets of Iran in Iraq primarily. They are under the direct command and control of Iran, and the administration has no doubt about that. The administration is not responding aggressively to Iran because it's afraid of widening the war. It wants to narrow down the conflict just to Israel and Hamas. And at the same time, and this is, I think, the less defensible aspect of the policy, it wants to preserve, the administration wants to preserve its policy of engagement of Iran. I personally would call it appeasement, but if I don't want to use language that's going to be provocative, I'll just say engagement of Iran, which it believes is going to stabilize the Middle East.
And this we've spoken about before, this appeasement of Iran, and I want to get onto that in a moment, but just explain to us what these retaliatory strikes look like. I think one description in the Washington Post said, well, you know, they blew up a few warehouses that may have had weapons, that sort of thing, really just rattling a few stones around, but not doing anything, you know, particularly to say, cut it out.
No, there's the choice of targets is designed to send a message to Iran of de-escalation. I'm using the language of the administration, designed to say we don't want to get into a conflict directly with you. They're doing something. There have been many dozens of attacks. I think we're up to over 60 attacks. This is since October 7th. Prior to October 7th, there was some 83, I think, attacks by the Iranians, and just a very small number, 2 or 3 responses by the United States. Since then, we've had 60 more attacks. Again, just a very small number of responses by the United States. So just in terms of sheer numbers, we're talking about nearly 150 attacks by Iran and less than 10 responses by the United States, and responses that are very tepid. They are not offensive countermeasures that are going to prevent the Iranians, make the Iranians think twice about doing this. They don't directly target Iranians. They don't even go after the people who are directly targeting the United States. They pick targets in Syria, for example. So the whole thing is really a kind of it's a kind of kabuki rather than a serious effort to deter the Iranians.
And Michael, I mean, I think viewers at home may not quite get just how, I think, weak this policy is. I want to play a little bit of Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh, who was asked about the effectiveness strategy the other day. Have a listen to this. I want your reaction to it.
Pointed out that there have been 66 attacks by Iranian-backed militia groups on U.S. coalition forces since October 17th. Why aren't these U.S. counterstrikes working as a deterrence strategy?
Well, you know, I would push back on that. I know 66 is a high number, but again, we have days sometimes where we don't have attacks. So is it like, would you say that the strategy is not working if one day goes by where there's not an attack on U.S. forces?
Michael, days go by, a whole day without an attack. This is what success looks like under the Biden administration.
I'm sorry to laugh. It's hard to take it seriously, but really, I mean, do I even need to criticize it? I think that response speaks for itself.
Yeah,
This is not a serious response at all.
Okay, but let's take this, to the next steps here. And what happens if, God forbid, one of these Iranian strikes really hits their mark? You get a number of American troops killed in one of these attacks. It's going to be a hard job for the Biden administration to say, well, look, we're just going to keep doing these sort of little strikes, isn't it? I mean, obviously, there's a real risk that this could escalate whether or not the White House wants to or not.
Well, James, we really are in uncharted territory here, in the sense that already 50 some odd Americans have been wounded. So it's not like Americans haven't been hurt by this. If you'd have told me a few years ago that this would happen in the Middle East, and there wouldn't be a really robust American response designed seriously to deter Iran, I would have told you, no, that would never work, because there would be an outcry in the American public. But so far, we haven't seen that. But the administration doesn't want to escalate, because if it does, a whole train of things will follow. It will have to actually engage in serious military activity against the Iranians, because there will be an escalatory ladder that the administration will have to win. That will mean a military buildup. It will mean serious exchange of fire with the Iranians. It will mean that it will have to cut off oil supplies between Iran and China, and that'll complicate the China policy. It will complicate the administration's energy policy. It will complicate the administration's effort to appease the progressives on the university campuses. And finally, it will endanger the strategy that the administration has in place to win the election in 2024.
And so finally, Michael, I mean, that is just, a horrifying set of circumstances there, but it seems like you're going to get there one way or the other, whether you like it or not.
So.
How much of this is really due to a continuation of that Obama-era policy, which seemed to want to center Iran, legitimize Iran, and downgrade Israel and its relationship with the United States?
It's 100%. That's 100% what it is. It's a continuation of the Obama policy. And James, this is the key thing. They believe in that policy. They're proud of it. They want to preserve it. They're working hard. They know that they're hanging on by their fingertips, but they want to preserve it because they think ultimately it's a good thing. But I believe that you're right, that sooner or later this thing is going to collapse. I'm surprised it's held on as long as it has.
Michael Doran from the Hudson Institute, thank you so much for joining us to break down this really disturbing set of facts in the Middle East.